Well, I'm not sure that, you know, you act with your professional hat on in your family life. I mean, every time I tried to do anything that felt slightly clinical with our two sons, they would say, you just sit around all day and say, go with that thought. And I can quite honestly say in my entire 40 years of being a clinician, I have never said go with that thought once. But, you know,
or when they say, don't therapize me.
Yeah, don't therapize me, right. So that would be the, you know, I don't think that we do well as family members trying to, you know, use, I mean, obviously we draw from our life experience, including our professional work, but I don't know, I think I would probably say, whenever we were having a fight and it looked to me like Brad was doing some mediation, I would want to kill him, because that is just not that's not what it was about. I didn't want to be, I felt played. As our older son, who had just gotten his driver's license, and we live in a two-family house with limited parking for the tenants and ourselves. So he had just gotten his license and decided that he wanted to buy a used police car for $200. He thought it was a great deal. And I heard it and I went berserk with absolutely no interest in negotiating with him, but simply telling him that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You don't know how badly these police cars are abused, and we don't have space to park it anyway, and on and on. And he said, it's my money. And we had quite an uncivil conversation about this idea he came up with. And then Brad came home, and with his better skills in that moment, he said, well, let's just think, you know, how often do you need to use it? When are you thinking of using it? Because we do have two cars, so you could use ours on the weekend. And slowly but surely sort of.
Well, and how much is it going to cost you?
and the extra expense. Eventually, he decided not to buy that car. But those were our two different approaches in that moment.
Gee, never happened. No,
with Ben it happened.
With Ben it happened. Yeah. Actually, I think that some of the intriguing moments were actually when we disagree in sort of public in front of a divorcing couple, for example,
which is actually helpful.
And that turns out, you know, we've really got different ideas or whatever, and we learned to do that and let them come out, because we would eventually sort of work them through, and it was not a bad sort of model for what these folks had to do, which is you come in with disagreeing about stuff and you got to figure out some way to agree. One of the things that's always remarkable about that is lawyers learn to ask questions about the law and the facts and whatever, and forget to ask questions about, and tell me a little bit about you know, where how this dispute originated, and tell me a little bit about the background of the folks, where there are often solutions that are sitting there with law training just doesn't get you there.
I consult, do a clinical consultation and supervise a social work student at Greater Boston Legal Services. And the kinds of things that people bring to the lawyers and advocates bring to the consults are like social work 101, you know, how to, so someone's having an employment case, and I'll say, what other work have they done? And the lawyers look at me like, well, I don't know. Why would I want to know that? Or, you know, a housing issue. And I say, well, you know, have they ever lived any place for a long time? I don't know. So that concept of, you know, sort of painting the whole picture, which as mediators, when we're trained, we learn that you're supposed to do that, but it doesn't come naturally. Often it happens that we're in a complicated case, let's say a sexual abuse case, with lawyers and everybody digging in, and they'll be doing their lawyer thing. And it's very foreign to me. Both professionally and also temperamentally, I'm sort of what you see is what you get. So, you know, I might say something that seems like an innocent sort of observation or comment or what if possibility, and we leave to go to the other caucus room, and Brad said, you know, when you said that, this is what they heard. And it's like, what? I didn't say that, but there's a different kind of language that lawyers use apparently, and I'm not fluent in that language. So those moments are very uncomfortable because I feel like, well, then I just better shut up because I don't know the game. And he's never disrespectful or rude about it, but clearly there's something going on that I'm not up for. And most of the mediations that I do co-mediations with another lawyer in our firm now that Brad is almost always doing civil cases, but they're family cases. There are very rarely lawyers there. They may be adult siblings around estates or divorce or blended family or something, but you know, we're just talking to 2 people or 5 people, however many people are there, not with the lawyers maybe in the background, but they're not there at the moment of the negotiation.
Yes, well described is you don't have a lot of patience for what we now have learned to call lawyer games.
Yeah, no, I'm not good about games in general, but definitely those. But then I feel stupid because, you know, you don't want to make mistakes, so.
However you get there, when there is that kind of connection,
Right.
that
right.
profound connection, which allows you then to have conversations which are entirely different.
Right.
I mean, you know, you've really established a real empathy with folks when you can talk about what's difficult in their case from a place in which they think there's an alliance of some sort or another, and that's multiplied when they recognize that you're actually doing that not only in their room but in the other room. That one doesn't always happen. That folks can recognize that.
For a very short time in my life, I did drawing. It didn't last long, and I lost whatever skills I had. But I have this drawing. There's this one drawing I did that Brad has in his office, and I was doing a very messy adult sibling conflict estate thing, and the youngest daughter was living in the family home, and she didn't want to move, and she was an artist, and I took her from the room we were mediating to show her this one drawing that I had done, and it shifted everything. It was really remarkable.
There were 2 lawyers on, a plaintiff's lawyer and a defense lawyer. The plaintiff's lawyer in lead paint cases. And this plaintiff's lawyer was as aggressive as you could possibly be in these cases. And the defense lawyer woman was terrific at beating them back. And they became sort of mortal enemies in when any case would come up. And until the woman adopts a new baby, and the plaintiff and the guy on the other side has an adopted son, and that piece of connection between them changed that relationship in a really profound way and made many of the future mediations or negotiations between them, sometimes they didn't need the mediation anymore. And there was a way they could talk to each other, which was intriguingly different. So one's always looking for ways in which
You can humanize the relationships.
That's right. They find humanity.
Humanity. The one other thing I will mention, though, that we do really well at the firm, although obviously now during Zoom mediations we can't do, is feed people well. It matters. It's maybe the Jewish mother mediator in me, but it really, people comment on it all the time. We get good lunches and we don't charge them, and we just make, which I think is another technique to getting people to get out of their little positions and be humans,
Well, and
eating and
and the connection piece that we were talking about before, where you're connecting with the folks. The
on a different,
food,
right.
the food is another way to connect with them, but it's also one of the very big things is to whatever extent you can get folks to get human with each other.
Right. That's
And food is a way of doing that. Everybody, and sometimes the folks will even sit down a little bit for a while together and have their lunches together.
mhm.
Not always, but we give we always give cookies out at 3:00, and turns out that somebody brought in a story that there's a mediation place in Atlanta where they bake the cookies on site.
Oh,
So
so
the
the
smell
smell.
I
permeates the
love that.
place. But just as you noting, no case settles, however, before
The cookies.
the cookies actually get served. Well,
Has he?
part of the most fun when we are actually doing things together is when Jane shorts herself stuff on the lawyer games. There are moments when she really nails somebody on either it's a legal thing like, wait, isn't there a statute of limitations? Uh, or better yet is when a lawyer really gets aggressive. She's perfectly happy about dishing it right back. So that's a fun moment for her to be on the, if you will, out of character. And every once in a while, I've got an insight about the sort of family dynamics. There was what was it? Ultimatum Man.
Yeah, right.
So there was a divorce mediation where this fella came in, and the husband comes in the beginning of first session and says, I know what we were supposed to do, but we've got a really serious problem on our hands, which is the kid is doing such and such, and unless we solve that problem, we can't go further. And so we spend, 20, 25 minutes on this problem that he's raised. Second session, we've got an agenda that's set out from the first session, and he comes in and says, yeah, we'll do that agenda, but before we do this really serious problem came up yesterday between my wife and myself, and we need to solve that one. Well, one of the beauties of co-mediation is if you trust your co-mediator, one of the things you can do is sort of sit back for a little bit, let that person handle it, and you can observe a little bit and catch something. Well, I caught the pattern, and I realized that what he was doing was not allowing us to get to the meat of every one of the mediation sessions with his ultimatums. And we finally named him between us Ultimatum Man, and realized in lots of little ways and other ways he did it, and came up with a little technique between us about how to deal with that, which is, okay, lovely, let's make a list of all those things that we've got to get to, and we'll get to them, but it allows us to take control back of the process.